Hi everyone, it's Yvette Blowitz from SpiritGirl.com and welcome to the Spirit Girl Talk Show podcast. I'm super excited to be here with you today and with our very special guest, Dr. Elena Welsh, who is a licensed clinical psychologist and author of Trauma Survivors Strategies for Healing, the Cognitive Behavioral Therapy Workbook for Panic Attacks, Getting to Good, a guided journal to bring happiness and positivity into your day, and the 5-minute stress relief, which has 75 exercises to quiet your mind and calm your body. So today we're going to be diving into getting to good and also the 5-minute stress relief so that we can all really reduce our stress in these global pandemic times and feel calm and good from within. So Dr. Elena Welsh and to the Spirit Girl audience globally, welcome. How are you today?
Thank you. Doing good. Thanks.
It's so great to have you on the show. Look, you know I'm an absolute fan of your Getting to Good and also the 5-minute stress relief. Are you happy to tell our audience a little bit about yourself and then why you were drawn to get into being a psychologist and helping people with challenges from depression, anxiety, trauma, and those who are just seeking a richer life?
So I think I come from, interestingly, a family of psychologists and therapists. So it felt a little bit like kind of the family language. I grew up hearing my mom, who's a therapist and author, kind of talk about cases or talk about people in a certain way. And so I think I've also just been really drawn to people's stories, to how unique people are. Frankly, I'm a little nosy and I love just kind of hearing the real behind the scenes deal. And so therapy is a really cool window into, I think, what a lot of people don't get to hear about, which are, what's really happening behind a marriage, what's really happening behind a high functioning person, what do people worry about, what are people thinking about? So I find I have to bring it back in kind of social situations and not ask too intrusive, personal questions that people don't always love to get into. So really, I think, it just came from a love of people and a fascination with people. And so I feel like I knew from a pretty early age that that's kind of the route I would take. And then went into graduate school. Obviously, it's a very long course of education to get to be a psychologist. So you kind of have to put your dues in education-wise. So that was a long part of my journey. And so started out much more in just doing traditional clinical work. I've worked in hospitals and private practice settings. And the writing that I've done more recently came out of feeling like a lot of people don't get therapy. A lot of people don't feel like they need therapy. A lot of people that want or need therapy can't access it for either resource issues, stigma issues. And there's a lot of things that we do in therapy, whatever the problem is, that I think are very universal. And so I felt like there's a lot in the therapy office and a lot that we're learning through science about what works and what helps people change and what helps people feel better. That is really easy to translate. And so that's kind of where my writing comes in, is trying to just bring these practices, particularly the ones that are evidence-based or have a little bit of research backing behind them, to a larger audience. And so kind of bringing the therapy out of the office and more in a very digestible form where everybody can do small things. Everybody can find something that they want to do to kind of move their life in a positive direction or feel a little bit better. And that it really is a lifetime of small kind of habits and small refining. I think it's less of a big aha moment, or transformation in the sense that people might imagine, and more just kind of figuring out in baby steps what works for you as an individual.
Oh, that's such an incredible story. And your mum, like growing up with therapists and psychologists, it just was the norm for you. But when I grew up in Australia, I wouldn't have even known what a therapist was or a psychologist. So removed from that world. we were experiencing a lot of stress, just day-to-day stress before the global pandemic. And obviously now people are really experiencing stress at all degrees, but in their personal life, whether that's a mum, at work, just day-to-day stress. And then on top of that, the stress of restrictions or the uncertainty or stress of not knowing if you maybe are going to have a job or not. What can we do? Like, you've written the 5-minute stress relief, which I love that you could just open a page and do something to help with stress. But can you kind of explain what stress is, why it's a natural thing that we all experience in some degree, but also something we could do to help with the stress, to reduce it?
So I think, there's a general understanding or consensus right now that stress is bad for our health. More and more, we're able to recognize the contribution of stress to a lot of the major illnesses. And so I think that's part of our understanding these days. But around the 90s, it was kind of a newer concept. And so there was a book that came out by Robert Sapolsky, who's a stress researcher, called Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers. And I think that title just kind of sums up what humans do with the stress response so beautifully. So what the stress response is just the basic fight or flight response that people have mostly heard of, which is what protects you if you were alone in the woods and encountered a bear. Your fight or flight response kicks in and you run away from that bear. So it was designed in a very kind of basic evolutionary fashion where you sense danger, you get out of danger. So the nod in the title, Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers, is zebras are only stressed when they're facing immediate danger. Whereas humans, a very easy example that you raised is everybody that's worried about losing a job or has lost a job. If you think of what happens in the human brain when you're worried about losing your job, usually we think, crap, if I lose this job, what's going to happen? I'm not going to be able to pay my rent, and then I'm not going to be able to pay this, and then what if I lose my home? And then you're kind of going, da-da-da-da-da-da-da, and your body doesn't understand that this is just a hypothetical scenario your brain's going through. Your body's thinking, we're in danger, we're about to lose the house, like freak out and let's get out of here. So your resources are kind of activated. Sometimes if you're paying attention, you'll notice maybe like your heart rate gets a little higher when you're feeling particularly amped up. You might tense your muscles. You might notice a temperature change. That's all that kind of biological response kicking in to get you out of danger. But if you think about it just from a resource perspective, it's very taxing on your body long term. It's kind of moving your major muscles. It slows your digestion because digestion isn't important if you're escaping a predator. And so it does stuff that's helpful in the moment that in the long run is really taxing to our bodies. So just kind of understanding that, I think, can give folks a little bit of a better awareness to notice either you notice that, oh, I'm going way far down this rabbit hole of what's going to happen because of this one fear, or you might notice that activation in your body, whether it's tension, your shoulders raise up, you're a little, clammy. And so anytime you notice that kicking in, if you can just pause, taking a deep breath is the simplest way to communicate to the nervous system, to the part of the brain that then can calm you down and kind of counter that. So by taking a deep breath or saying something like, I'm okay. In this moment, everything is okay. I'm having worried thoughts about losing my job and the financial repercussions, but in this moment, nothing bad is actually happening to me. Then you're almost communicating with your body, allowing that response to calm down a little bit. So the major takeaway from that book is it doesn't matter as much what you do as long as you're doing kind of something to counter that effect, whether it's deep breathing, distracting yourself, calling a friend, doing exercise, putting on music, anything that's shifting your brain and body away from that imaginary threat is calming your nervous system down and then, has better long-term health implications as well as just you kind of feel better in your mood.
I love how you said we just have to notice. So notice the thoughts or notice the sensations in our body and what's going on. And then instead of getting caught up in that with the reaction and then raising our cortisol stress levels and staying in a chronic state of stress, we can basically choose the opposite. So de-stress, relax. Why is relaxing so important? Like, obviously, as a spa it girl community, we love to go to the spa to relax or have a massage. During the global pandemic, many of our spas and salons were actually closed, but we had to find other ways to have a bath at home or meditation or yoga. But why is relaxing so important to reducing stress in our overall health and well-being?
Well, if you think about the spa environment, that's actually a great example of kind of using mindfulness in a way where you're utilizing all your senses to relax or to distract from worries or distract from stressful stimuli or things. So if you walk into a spa, usually there's calm music. So that's kind of utilizing sound to calm your senses down. Usually it's visually pleasing. So that's kind of using your visual system to calm yourself down. Usually people are friendly, so it's designed to kind of capitalize on all the senses and to keep you in the moment, right? So you're less likely to be on Instagram or on social media in a spa because you're engrossed and you're engaged in the experience. And so that's a part of why the spa experience is so traditionally associated with relaxation. And there's so much research on mindfulness meditation and its relations to cortisol levels, like you mentioned, which is one of the easy ways we can kind of measure and get a snapshot of someone's stress. And I think another important part of kind of demystifying mindfulness is it doesn't have to be a traditional meditation. If you're going to the spa and you are consciously staying present in that experience and in that moment, that in and of itself is, in my mind, a form of mindfulness practice. So a lot of the tools that we use to kind of counter anxiety or counter worry thoughts are trying to mindfully use your senses to put your attention elsewhere. When you're worried, you're often future focused. When you're kind of depressed or in a funk, oftentimes you're past focused. Like, why did I do that? Why did I say that? Why didn't that go how I wanted it to? So staying present, staying in the moment, there's usually, again, that's where nothing bad is happening. So, and that's where our nervous system typically calms down if we are in relaxing surroundings. So when you enter a spa, you're using all of your senses to be in the present moment. Usually it's the aromatherapy sense, the calming music. It's all kind of creating an atmosphere that helps you stay present. So it makes it easier for us to do the same thing that ideally you're kind of cultivating outside the spa, where you're looking for the beautiful, flower or sights. You're kind of listening and noticing good music, maybe creating that atmosphere for yourself is a good way to kind of shift yourself into a calmer state.
I love that. And during the global pandemic, I had to do some writing on how to create a spa at home. And that's why I also wanted to share your 5-minute stress relief book, because creating a calm environment at home can be a bit chaotic if you've got a lot of kids. But you talk about in your book the benefits of music for stress. And we really can create that calm feeling at home, can't we, by the music we create? So if we can't go to the day spa, we can introduce music at home, can't we, to evoke that feeling of relaxation. What are the benefits of listening to music?
I think that's a part of too where the individualization comes in, where if you love music, then music is going to be a great way for you to calm down and de-stress. If you don't love music, silence might be a better way for you to calm down and de-stress. So throughout all of these tools, a lot of it is really noticing what actually works for me and what doesn't work for me. So with music, I like to tell people, find the song that that song that just gets you and you start singing along and you're entirely engrossed in it. So having those particular songs on a playlist or on a go-to when you just kind of want to get out of your head and back into the moment, those are great to tap into. Thinking of creating kind of a calming, de-stressing atmosphere. A lot of the streaming services now have kind of a spa-like radio option. So those are usually good for calming the nervous system. And then to kind of take it to the next level, sound baths are a wellness practice that obviously I'm not saying you can do a sound bath necessarily in your home every day, but again, kind of the same concept where can we take some of what they're doing in a sound bath and apply it easily in our own life. And so when you're listening to that type of music, Bon Iver is another group that's really great for this. And you're kind of noticing the different levels of the music, or kind of really trying to stay present with the music and just notice it and notice the different layers and levels. Again, you're not worrying about everything. You're in the present moment. Your nervous system calms down. And so it's those little moments that the more you have, the more your stress response not only isn't producing cortisol, but your body gets more effective at calming down in stressful situations. So the more regularly you engage in relaxation in whatever form, your body becomes familiar and habituated to this calm state. Versus you can kind of imagine that friend or that person who's kind of always in stressed out mode, or you can imagine for yourself days or times or periods of your life where you are always in that kind of hurried one thing to the next. Everything feels so important and just kind of sucked into that stress. So we become very habituated very easily, and one thing kind of builds on the other. So ideally we're building on relaxation and calm as opposed to kind of building on stress.
I love that, building on relaxation and calm as opposed to building on the stress. And I must admit, when I switched my morning up, and I love to listen to music so I can transform my mood and my energy, and it really stops if I catch myself worrying or thinking about the future or going over the past. What could I have done better here? How could I have handled that better? I just can completely switch off literally the brain and re-frequency it into the music, and then it just starts to focus on that, and then I relax myself and feel calmer, and I'm in a much better state and a much better headspace. And it's really such a powerful tool, and it's literally, we have it on our phone, YouTube, or there are so many incredible things available. So I love that you included the benefits of music for stress, and thank you for sharing. You also have included in your book why coloring in and doodling can help calm the mind. Can you share more on that?
It's kind of a similar process. There's been a lot of interest or excitement lately in adult coloring books. And if you think of, again, back to mindfulness, a lot of people describe mindfulness as a childlike state of mind. If you think of a child, they're a lot more kind of just observant, curious, open. And so we associate coloring often with being a children's activity. And so what we're doing by adult coloring, or for any human coloring, again, you're calming down the part of your brain. You're giving yourself something to focus on. Oftentimes there's kind of a rhythm or a pattern. So the more engrossed you are in something, the better the benefit, like we're talking about. And so that's where You can also layer where you're doing coloring and listening to music and putting on a candle, that kind of thing. Then you're using more of your tools or your resources. So you can think of it as kind of the more the better. There's nothing that you do to try to relax that really is going to have a counterproductive effect. What does kind of feel counterproductive if you're like, relax, calm down, calm down. So that's where it's more thinking about what can I do right now to calm down. And coloring, again, if you enjoy it, is another one of those tools to just, it gives you something to do, it gives you something to focus on, and that's what you do for as long as it holds your attention. And then it's another area where you can kind of customize it to your own interests. So you can pick patterns that are visually pleasing to you. You can pick colors that fit your mood or personality. And so you can, with all of this, you just really want to make it your own.
I love that. And as an example, last year, sadly, when my mum had a seizure and went into a coma in the mix of COVID-19, not from COVID, but from pneumonia, it was such a stressful time, and it was so stressful. And I thought, how am I going to calm myself down? Like, I was so stressed out, and I literally turned to coloring in, because I had heard it was really beneficial, and it's in your book. And it really, really, really did work. It kind of like calmed my central nervous system. It just sort of helped me de-stress, helped me cope better. And it just took, I think, my mind off all my stress and worry. And it really, 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 really worked. And that's why I wanted to share how you've included that in your book, because it really, 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 really does work. And I got to put it to its absolute test because it was really stressful at the time.
Yeah.
Mum being in a coma, and just with all the COVID restrictions as well, only 2 in a room and glass and all of these things. So that is, you also included the benefits of repeating a mantra or an affirmation. Why are affirmations and I am so powerful?
Well, again, if you talk about kind of noticing what's happening with us, oftentimes we're not as aware of the quality of our thoughts as we might think we are. And so sometimes with clients in therapy, someone will be feeling awful. And a lot of what we do is kind of examine, like, what were you thinking around that time? And sometimes it's hard to actually have people articulate it because our thoughts happen so quickly that we just feel a certain way oftentimes. But you'll notice when you pause and kind of start teasing it apart, we are very self-critical. And so you notice a lot of very extreme, very harsh statements like, oh, you idiot, you forgot the keys. How could you be so stupid? You always do this. And that's kind of, again, what becomes a habit of our go-to self-talk or our self-narrative. And so, especially when you're trying to kind of consciously shift your mood or to call in a certain feeling state that you're wanting to feel, if you become more conscious of your thoughts, that can be a huge tool in doing that. So I am statements obviously want to be affirming. You can use them in a way to kind of reach, again, for a state that you're wanting to feel. If you're feeling weak or not confident, you could think something like, I am strong, I am powerful, I am competent, I am loved, whatever resonates with you. But really anything that you want to feel or that makes you feel positive. But just really starting with noticing the quality of your thoughts, and at the very least working on reducing some of those really, really harsh critical thoughts. And an easy way to do that is to ask yourself, like, would I say that to a friend who was doing or saying or thinking or had done the same thing? And oftentimes you would never dream of saying something that harsh, and you wouldn't even think that your mind automatically like, oh no, I would never say that to her, or she didn't mean to do that, or, it's so much easier to be compassionate to other people. So that's a huge piece of it, is just noticing, being aware of our thoughts. They have a lot of impact on the quality of our mood. And oftentimes they're happening so quickly that we're not aware how critical or how negative our self-talk has become.
What you said is so right. We wouldn't say to a friend, you're dumb, you're an idiot, you should have did this. Like, there's no way in a million years. And yet we can find that we would beat our own self up, which then brings our mood down, which can then actually make us feel depressed, can't it? Like, if we're always beating ourselves up from the inside, then we're giving ourselves a good, like, Muhammad Ali session going on in there. So important, isn't it? And what I love about Getting to Good, because I want to share your guided journal. It's so pretty, it's so beautiful and feel good. And it really is like a therapy session with you where you can open it up and really, I feel like it's like going on a bit of a self-care, self-love retreat at home, which is so important now when we can't go to retreats around the world, which we once did as a community. So I love how you get us to do like pen to paper and journaling. Why is the power of journaling, like writing our thoughts and feelings, like what's really bothering us, so beneficial to our mental health and to our mood and the way we feel from within?
Part of what can be so helpful about journaling is that when you're just kind of venting out or processing what's happening is you're acknowledging what you're feeling. Because otherwise, I think what can happen so often in our busy daily lives is I'm hurt or sad about something that someone said or an exchange I had with someone, but I just shove it down and carry on throughout my day. And then later on, I'm easily upset about something that really I shouldn't be upset by, that I'm crying and kind of confused why I'm feeling so bad. And so just the power of acknowledging often is enough, especially for something small, to let us release it out. So just kind of traditional journaling, if you think of a teenage girl journaling, they're just kind of going stream of consciousness. So that's, I think, the power and the utility in just journaling in general. What can happen though is, again, if we talk about those kind of negative self-thoughts, is sometimes if the quality of your thoughts is negative or is kind of exaggerated or distorted in some way, if you're just doing that stream of consciousness journaling, sometimes you might be reinforcing some of those negative thought patterns. So that's where I think guided journaling for some folks can be a way to help move the narrative forward in a way that just venting out journaling, I think does a beautiful job of acknowledging and helping you process what you're feeling. But the goal of the guided journal is to kind of then take it one step further, again, informed by a lot of the science on like positive psychology, what helps us improve our mood, what types of thoughts make us feel better. And so that's where the guided journaling can kind of add a little more structure in to help you process what you're feeling or thinking.
I love your journal, Getting to Good. It's so feel good, so beautiful, and it is literally like a therapy session, but at home, where you get to connect, because you talk about who I am now versus who I want to be, and you can pick like just one quality that you really want to work on and inspire to. I felt that was so powerful because it kind of helps you go, right, I'm here right now. It might be, I feel overweight, I feel unhealthy, I don't feel good. But then you can pick just one thing, which might be exercise. I'd love to start exercise, and just aspire to do something small. Why is that so powerful in just choosing one thing and focusing on one thing?
I mean, I think it's empowering because oftentimes we get so stuck in where we want to be, feels so far away. And so then you can just kind of stop and stay there. And so what that exercise is trying to do is get the reader or the writer into a kind of growth mindset where it's about growing and it's about trying to align what do I want and what do I value, and then what behaviors or how is my day in support of what I want or not in support of what I want. Because I think ultimately, what therapy can do and what we're all trying to do is just figure out our best way of doing this life. And so that looks very different. I can't stress enough for different people, but taking time to consciously check in with yourself. Where am I and what behaviors am I doing that are supporting where I am versus where do I want to be, and being intentional about where you want to be. Again, it's so easy to just get on autopilot because our lives are so busy that then time goes by and there's this goal you have, but you weren't structuring it into your day. And so without check-in points, which is another, I think, really important piece of journaling or guided journaling or any of this kind of self-work, is just having check-in points with yourself about, am I happy with the way my day is going? Am I happy with the way my life is going? And where I'm not happy, what is one small step I can take? Because again, like we talked about earlier, I think that habits are so momentum building. And so just doing one small thing, we've all had that experience of not dreading our workout or dreading our walk and just kind of, okay, I'll do 5 minutes. I'll just walk on the block for 5 minutes. And then you do that 5 minutes and then you go a little further because you feel a little lighter or a little better. So it's that, just taking a small step. And the other piece of that, back to the mindfulness, is then noticing, do I feel a little better after I got outside, after I drank more water, after I called the friend, after I moved my body? And oftentimes the answer is yes. You feel more energetic, you feel more alive, you feel more cheerful. That's a piece of it too, is when I do this new habit or make this new attempt, noticing the positive benefit I have from it will help build a little more momentum to then take that next step in the direction that you want to be going.
Love, 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 love that, because I'm such a big believer it's on the feeling. Like if we tune into how we feel, so if exercise can even just give us the good endorphins and make us feel better with our mood, if we connect to that, even in itself, that can help us with our journey, whether someone's trying to lose weight or whether someone just is trying to reduce stress. Or if we go to the feeling of feeling good, then we tend to then want to do it again. And if we're feeling lousy, we can really create a new habit based on the feeling. I loved in the journal how you also had the 30-day, basically just commit to one thing for 30 days. I was such a big fan of that because I think just one thing for 30 days, it's a really great challenge, especially during these stressful times. And I want to ask you, you also included a hard day to-do list. Can you share more about this?
So what that's based on is the research on depression shows that one of the best things you can do when you're depressed is just something. So to be active in some way. So the technical term for that is behavioral activation. And it literally shows effectiveness levels that are similar to some antidepressant medication. So it's really effective. The challenge is when you're depressed or when you're just in a funk or a bad mood, which most of us experience, at least to some degree, that's when you don't want to do anything. You feel that kind of low motivation suck. So the hard day to-do list, the intention behind that is you create it ahead of time when you have a little more pep in your step, hopefully, when you know the things and you're being honest with yourself about the things that make you feel good or the things that make you feel better. And then you have that list for yourself and you just kind of force yourself to go through it one step at a time. And that's, again, that momentum that we've been talking about, is you go outside and you take that walk and then you feel a little bit lighter, and you can go through that list as many times as you need to. But part of what is so tricky with all of this is taking a deep breath, coloring, listening to music. It all sounds almost so simple, like how could this really work? And especially when you're in a negative mood, that's when we're more likely to be the naysayers and like, that's not gonna do anything, that's not worth it. And so that's the part of your brain that's kind of kicking up when you're feeling blah or low motivation. So again, just doing something in the same way that the stress relief, you're just trying to do something to reduce your stress, just getting started with that next digestible baby step that you can get on board with, that's the step to take.
Yeah, I love this because you are a busy mum. And a lot of mums always talk about they just never have enough time for themselves. They feel like that is in itself 5 minutes stress relief. They feel like they either don't have even 5 minutes for themselves.
Right.
But I do love the reminder that you've got to find that 5 minutes for yourself. What are some of your self-care rituals as a busy mum and you running a practice and you're an author and you have so many things outside of the practice that you do?
Mm-hmm.
So how do you take care of yourself? And what are some of your go-to self-care rituals?
I'll start by saying I am not at all perfect in practicing what I preach, because we all have, the days where we're on with our routines and the things that we know make us feel good, and the days where we just let it slide and it feels impossible. So even for me, this is absolutely a work in progress and kind of a day-by-day tool. So that 30-day tracking is a tool that I really use to keep myself accountable. I'll just show everyone quickly. It's literally a little hard to see, but it's literally just 30 days written out. So you could kind of do it on your own. You could do it in a calendar. But for me, I know that movement, whether it's, some form of exercise, yoga, walking, is key to my mental health and sanity. I notice I get a lot more irritable if I'm not regularly moving, but it's also one of those things that it's really easy to slide out of the habit. So that 30-day tracking, I consistently do with my movement practice, just to catch myself when it's like been a week or so and I otherwise wouldn't have noticed or pretend not to notice that it's been a little while. And so it just really helps me keep me accountable and kind of help me keep on track with the movement. So that's a tool that I do use regularly for maintaining my movement practice. And then when I'm on my A game in the mornings, the gratitude list that I know a lot of people do these days, those really are key. So I try to do that, list out at least 3 to 5 things I'm grateful for. A key with that too is not doing the big things. So it's not like my health, my marriage, my, these huge things. It's trying to find the small things that are more close in time. So what happened yesterday, that great chat with a friend, getting to be on this wonderful podcast, that great cup of coffee, those little things, noting those then trains your brain to pay attention to them. And what you start to notice is you notice more things you're grateful for throughout the day when you're in that practice. So that's another one of those really simple things that actually has a really strong research base behind it in terms of improving rates of depression and anxiety, improving people's overall quality of life and mood ratings. So that's one I try to do. And then the last one I do is borrowed from Rachel Hollis, who's kind of a big self-help maven these days. And that is, it kind of ties back to just being intentional with where you are and where you want to be. So you start, before you start this exercise, you start with some sort of practice of kind of envisioning where you want your life to be in 5 years, 10 years, next year, some kind of future period of time. And then you write your goals in present tense. So I have kind of the same set of 10 things. So I am an exceptional wife and mother. I travel to beautiful places regularly. So it can be things like that. I wrote a self-help bestseller. I own a vacation home on the beach, whatever. It can be wild, but you write it in the present tense, again, to kind of bring on that feeling state. Because oftentimes what we're doing when we're dreaming is we're attaching a feeling state to it. And that's where oftentimes we can get kind of delusional about, if I had this house, if I had this amount of money, if I had this outfit, I would feel. And then there's the clue for the feeling you're going for. So that's some of what that exercise does. So that's some of the things that I try to do regularly. I also try to track my water I have kind of various planners where I'm tracking just the cups of water, because that's another one that just feels like a really low hanging fruit. Like it's pretty easy for me to drink a glass of water, something I can accomplish. And I do notice that the minimum kind of 8 glasses a day, really, I do feel better when I'm doing that. You have to use the restroom a lot more regularly, so it can be harder, but it's those little things that add up to making a difference. So those are some of the things I try to stay conscious of.
Wow, I love that. And you're obviously carving out time. So do you do this before the kids are up, or when the kids are asleep, or kind of like during lunch do you do your movement? Like, when do you fit it in?
Oftentimes it's an early morning wake up, but if that's not possible, then I do try to be flexible with it, because I think that's the other piece of all this is if you get too rigid about, I do my 45-minute exercise in the morning, then you can't make it that morning. Then you kind of, again, have that sense of failure. Oh, I'm failed at that today, as opposed to where can I fit in a 20-minute walk or even 5-10 minutes of exercise or movement can really shift your mood and shift your energy. So I do just kind of try to fit it in anywhere because, like I said, it's still kind of a rocky journey for me where I notice, I haven't been doing as good. This has been busier couple weeks with work, and look how much my movement has dropped off. So that's where the tracking really helps me kind of stay accountable with just keeping at it, because I think that's a big part of this all is just being intentional about making some efforts, and just always making some effort, even if you fall off or fall behind, or that effort looks different, and being fluid in what that looks like.
I love that, because like, as an example, during COVID-19 and the global pandemic, I've often thought, and I thought this even before the pandemic, but even if you got a 5-minute yoga stretch in or a 15-minute morning yoga session, like that would be better than 0 minutes.
Absolutely.
And I feel that, like, when I was raised, there was this mentality once you had to work out 1 hour, 1 hour a day minimum. And I feel that sometimes we have this mentality, we've got to work out for an hour a day or 45 minutes minimum. And sometimes the thought of that amount of time can be so overwhelming.
Absolutely.
Whereas if we just start small, which is your message also, and even committed to 15 minutes of movement or 10 minutes, that's still so much better than 0 minutes.
Absolutely.
Would you agree?
And it's kind of looking at where am I right now? And that's a part of the kind of being honest with yourself piece. If I was just exercising, if I'm at like 30-ish minutes frequently, then I'm ready to bump up to 45. If I'm at 0 and have been saying I'm going to start exercising regularly for months now with that hour workout in mind, and it's not happening, that's when I think it can be really helpful to be like, let's just do 5 minutes tomorrow, 10 minutes the next day, 15 minutes, and just build up from there. Absolutely. For me, I think especially having kids was when I really had to make the shift from that hour workout to 15 minutes here, 15 minutes there. And if I hadn't, I think, it may have just gone out the window. So you just have to adjust and adjust and adjust some more.
I love that. Adjust and adjust and adjust some more. And I do love in your journal, you do have that gratitude list, which is so beautiful. And I love how the practices in your journal, you also like the 30-day commit, use and utilize, and that keeps you on track, which is so powerful. I really love that. And you obviously do talk about visualization and the power of visualization. And you mentioned there, I know Dr. Joe Dispenza, who's a neuroscientist and very big on visualization and visualizing your future self and how that visualization can help. So that was so powerful. So if someone's feeling really lost, or they've lost hope of their dream because they feel like their dreams are being crushed, but if they could visualize the person they want to become, or the life they want to create, that can truly give them optimism and hope, can't it?
And I think, again, looking for that feeling state where, like, this is what I wanted because I wanted to feel fulfilled, engaged, like I was giving back, whatever it is. And then is there another way, if that avenue is not available to me, that I can feel a little bit of that in some way? Is there some small way I can give back? Is there something that is engaging me? So yeah, always looking for, there's always a way to get to the feeling state, I think, even if there's not a way to get exactly to your original goal.
Yeah, I love it, to get to the feeling state. And I love how you can, through getting to good, through your guided journal, you can rewrite bad days into good days just by grabbing the journal, grabbing a pen, and just opening it up. And I really recommend to all of our Spirit Girl podcast listeners globally to go to Booktopia, just really grab a copy and just start doing some inner work and some self-work, and really just kind of like have a therapy session at home with Dr. Elena Welsh in the comfort of your own home, because you're going to be able to have these feel-good prompts that will close the gap between you and happiness with exercises and reflections. These are proven therapies based on cognitive behavioral therapy, positive psychology, motivational interviewing, and mindfulness. And you're going to be able to build a positive mindset with strategies that help you focus on gratitude, small kindness, and the beauty of everyday life. Dr. Elena Welsh, thank you for sharing your words of wisdom today with us, your story of why you were inspired to get into psychology and why you were so fascinated and curious about what happens behind closed doors with people or what people are thinking about. Thank you for going to all of the effort to write these beautiful journals and books and to really help other people to feel good from within. It's such a gift during these global pandemic times. It's so needed. We all need some self-care, some self-love, some positive mindset, some therapy at home. So thank you for all that you do and all that you are. Your mum and family must be so proud of you that you decided to go down the route of psychology. And what about your kids? Are they fascinated with psychology as well?
They're very little, so we'll see. They're not that articulate yet.
Not yet.
But yeah, to be determined.
They'll have their little getting to good journal out. I bet you I can really see this unfolding where you might get little kid journals, right. And you'll probably there's so much that you'll be doing for many, many years to come when it comes to your being an author and serving and helping people. But it must make you feel so good. With your work, you must feel so good from within side when you can help transform the way someone's feeling, like take them from a really down, depressed, terrible, dark place to feeling good again, seeing the light, and feeling great. Like, how does that make you feel as a therapist, as a psychologist and author?
I mean, I think it is an absolute honor to be in the healing profession and to work with people. And so it has been a blessing to see people transform and to be a part of that journey. You know, it's also oftentimes people are coming to us in incredibly difficult times. So, you know, you also see that side of humanity and the world, but I wouldn't pick anything else. And so I am happy to be doing what I'm doing. And I appreciate your kind words. You know, it's as with all of us, there's days where we feel kind of more motivated. And so on the days when I am lacking that motivation, I do try to tap into what good can I do for the world here. And if this knowledge is getting to someone and helping them feel a little bit better, then I can feel good about that, and the work feels worthwhile.
Your work is so worthwhile. And that's why I was like, I really, really have to share you on the Spirit Girl podcast show. I've got to share you with our community, global community. And I would totally recommend everybody. I'll leave the links to your journals and books. Perfect. And for everybody to reshare this, because the tips you've shared are so profound. It's a life changer. And even trying one thing a day and committing to 30 days of a small change to make you feel good. I really want to make feeling good go viral. And I just believe that we all deserve to feel good from within. So to our podcast listeners, if there was someone out there and you're not feeling good right now, I want to give you encouragement, inspiration, empowerment, thanks to Dr. Elena Welsh, that you have the power to feel good within again, and you will. So don't give up. Don't give up. Always reach out for help if you need it. But I just hope by focusing on yourself and believing that you deserve to feel better again, you matter. You will feel good, and that's the most important thing. Dr. Elena Welsh, for our listener who might be tuning in and going, I just feel like crap. I don't feel good. I don't know. Like, this world is so hard right now. Things are so hard for me. What words of wisdom could you give to our listener who just is really struggling within?
Absolutely. I mean, I think just take it down. When things get really hard, you go to the most micro moment. So just in this moment, how can I feel better? And just taking a deep breath, making yourself a cup of tea, saying something kind to yourself, calling a friend, just focus on what can I do in this next moment, this next minute even, how can I get through this next minute, and then the next 5 minutes, and just taking small steps. If you find something that is engaging or helps you feel a little bit better, then you notice and do more of that. So it's just moment to moment, and it will pass. Hard feelings, you can kind of think of them like waves where they rise up and they usually peak and then they subside. So if you're feeling like you're in a lot of pain right now, it will pass. And so you just focus on the next thing you can do in the moment to help you feel a little better.
Oh, I love those words of wisdom, because even I experienced, like, when just more recently when my mum was diagnosed with terminal cancer, and we'd just gone through this incredible rehabilitation of a year of her talking and walking again, and we're taking her out every Saturday for coffee, and she's such in a happy place, and she looks so good. And when we got hit with the news that she's sadly been diagnosed with terminal cancer and the outcome would be palliative care, it was so heartbreaking and so hard. So a bit like you, while I love to practice what I preach with the gratitude and the walking, and there are hard days when the emotions are so overwhelming. And I did what you suggested then, just practice self-kindness, made a cup of tea, just went easy on myself, and just reminded myself that this feeling will pass. It did take a long time for the feelings to pass, but it did. And then I had a better day again. So thank you again, Dr. Elena Welsh, for being a guest on the Spirit Girl podcast show. I can't wait to have you back on the show again. And it's so important for our therapists and healers and psychologists and self-help authors, everybody who's giving, to also make time to fill their own cup up, isn't it? And really reduce their own stress.
Absolutely.
So thank you again. So we'll say goodbye to Dr. Elena Welsh. Be sure to subscribe to the Spirit Girl podcast show, to leave a 5-star rating and review, and to tell someone you'd love to. And together, let's feel good from within.